Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a video, kind of like advice for Muslim women particularly looking for a husband, what to look for. Also, a side note, it's extremely hot in Lebanon now. It's now like 90 degrees, so I'm going to be sweating throughout this video, just to give a heads up. And also I have allergies right now, so if my eyes look red or if I look a little puffy, that's why. My name is Najia, and I put out new videos every Tuesday, usually surrounding the topics of self-improvement, mental health, and Islamic values. That's often what my videos surround. Sometimes they're more like lifestyle videos, sometimes, you know, they're like vlogs or sit-down chit-chat videos about certain topics, things like that. So I have a good variety, but those are kind of the general topics I like to stick around. And yeah, so I'm just gonna jump straight into the video, and just to give a little bit of background on how Muslims often, you know, find a spouse, how the dating process is, things like that. With Muslims who practice their religion, there is kind of like a specific way that they get to know their future spouse and then end up marrying them. That's a bit different from like what, as an American, what we're used to kind of seeing as the norm in the US. So in the US, the norm is like people date and they'll date for a number of years, they might even move in together and then they'll get married. With Muslims, it's different. Religiously, you're not allowed to do a lot of things with your future spouse before you get married. So like, you're not allowed to touch their skin, you're not allowed to be alone in a room with them, things like that. You're not allowed to do anything other than be friends and talk to that person prior to getting married. And then once you get married, all those things are allowed for you. So you can touch them, you can kiss them, you can do whatever. You can be alone with them, you can live with them. All those things you're now allowed to do after you get married. So often what happens with religious Muslims is that they will, prior to getting married, they'll be talking. So it's not so much as like dating, because it's just not the same as what we consider dating, but it's more like a talking period where like you'll have long chats on the phone about like, you know, what your values are, and like just like casual talking, but you get to know the person over a period of time. And maybe if you live in the same place, you might like go on outings together, but it'll always be in like a public place with like other people around, things like that. So that's pretty much how like the Muslim dating goes. So the goal of this video is kind of to talk to the Muslim women out there and tell you guys, when you're in that like getting to know the other person phase, what you should be looking for in your future husband. And a lot of these points or these advice pieces are just from personal experience, but they're definitely with my like Islamic values in mind. That's where a lot of these come from too. Yeah, I'll just jump right into the different things that a woman should look for in her future husband. The first thing on my list is a Muslim woman should look for somebody who prioritizes being a good Muslim and becoming a better Muslim over time. And not only should they be looking for somebody who wants to be a better Muslim, but somebody who actually practices what they preach. So if they say like, oh, you know, I'm a religious Muslim, or I want to be a better Muslim, that they actually show that in their actions. They actually practice the religion, you know, they pray, they fast, they do acts of sunnah, they do their obligations, they avoid the sins, they do extra acts of worship. You know, if a person is saying that they value their religion, you need to be able to see that in the way that they act as well. And if somebody says, oh, I want to be a better Muslim, you have to actually see that they're attending more religious lessons. They're, you know, making it a priority to better themselves in the religion. And that goes for anything. If somebody says they are a certain way, they're like a very fit person, you want to see that they're practicing what they say they are. If somebody is saying that they are one way and then you see in reality that they're not, then that kind of indicates a level of dishonesty. It's a red flag. So my advice to the Muslim woman looking for a good husband would be, find somebody who prioritizes the religion and also practices what they say they believe is right. And also, like, this is sort of obvious, but it's a major red flag if somebody oversteps Islamic boundaries in like the talking process, right? So like, if you are trying to do everything according to the rules of the religion, you're trying to just get to know this person prior to getting married, and then they want to like hold your hand, for example, or they do hold your hand, like they just take your hand and they know that they're not supposed to, then overstepping those Islamic boundaries between a man and a woman is a red flag in itself. If somebody is doing that, then that's, probably not the person that you're looking for. The second thing that I would suggest a Muslim woman look for in a husband is somebody who is selfless, somebody who truly puts others before themselves. And, it's easy, especially, I'm literally wiping sweat from my brow, but anyways, it's easy to believe that somebody is like that, especially in the beginning of a relationship, because when you first are with somebody, when you're first talking to them, getting to know them, they want to be making a good impression. They want to be like giving you gifts or like, doing things to kind of like impress you so that you think that they're a good person, etc. So it might come off that a person is selfless, but the way that you really can tell if a person is truly selfless is you observe how they act with their family members, you observe how they act with somebody who's like serving them or somebody who works for them or something like that. The person who is truly selfless is the person who, when they're in a relationship with you, will put you before themselves and before other kind of lesser priorities in their life. And you're gonna end up being in a relationship with somebody who prioritizes your needs and thinks about your needs. And of course you wanna be that way with your spouse as well. It's not just a one-sided situation where they're selfless and you're selfish. No, you wanna be selfless with your spouse as well. Being selfless is a huge indication of how that person is going to treat you in your marriage later on. It's a highly rewardable trait to have in the religion, in Islam, and it's something that is an indication of a person's character. The third thing I would look for in a future husband as a Muslim woman is somebody who is held in high esteem by others. When you're in a relationship with somebody prior to getting married, so you're talking to them, it can be difficult when you have certain boundaries with that person to really see how they are, and if you haven't known them for a long time, for example, it can be difficult to know, okay, how is this person in reality? What does this person have a history of acting like? Do they have a history of acting the way that I'm seeing them acting? Or do they have a history of acting in a different way that's maybe not something that I want for my future husband? So it's a good idea to ask others about this person. So for example, if you have brothers, for example, you can have them talk to this guy that you're thinking about marrying. You can have them, or you yourself can talk to others in the community about this person and see, is he really the way he says he is? Is he really a good Muslim? Is he really somebody who is giving and kind, and is the way that he's presenting himself to you, is he really that way? Because you want to be sure before you get married that this person is the way that they say they are. A lot of the time, like, Muslim couples end up getting married in a shorter period of time than a non-Muslim couple that's maybe like dating and living together and things like that. It often takes less time from when you meet your future spouse to when you get married to them to get married because of the boundaries that we have. So it's good to, be sure and to not only like see for yourself how this person acts, but also to see what others say about this person. The third thing that I would suggest for a Muslim woman when looking for a husband is finding somebody who values what you value. And this goes for any kind of relationship, like a friendship, whatever. You want to be in a relationship with somebody and you're going to have a connection with somebody who values similar things to what you value. And of course, you don't have to value all of the same things. It doesn't have to be 100% all of your values align. But there has to be significant overlap, and there has to be, in the things that you guys do not agree upon and the things that you guys do not both value, there has to be a mutual respect for what the other person values and a mutual understanding for what the other person values, and maybe even like a willingness to make shifts if your values differ, and to hear the other person's argument out rather than just dismissing them because their values don't completely align with yours. There has to be a willingness for that. This is something that you hear about in psychology. I majored in psychology in college, so this is something that, when you take psychology classes, when you read articles, that this is what binds people together. It's commonality. It's having things in common, and particularly having values in common. And so there needs to be an overlap in that area. If a couple disagrees on gun policies, for example. This is a huge, argument in the United States. Some people are very pro-guns and other people are very against people owning guns. So let's say a couple disagrees on this topic, and this is actually something that my husband and I disagree on. He grew up in the South, I grew up in the North. I have very Northern ideas about, about who should be owning guns, and he has very Southern ideas about who should be owning guns. So that's something that we disagree about, mostly due to the fact that we grew up in different environments. But there is a mutual respect between us where it's like, okay, I understand his perspective, and I believe he understands my perspective, and we've agreed that we're not going to do anything to make the other person feel uncomfortable. So like, for example, if I don't want him, having a gun in our home or carrying a gun around with him on the regular, then that's not something he's gonna do unless we've like discussed it and I've become comfortable with whatever idea he has around guns that's applicable to our life. So there needs to be that kind of respect where it's like, okay, well, if you disagree on something, you're not gonna do something to make the other person feel uncomfortable because they don't hold that same value that you have. So that's just an example, but like it can apply to other values too. Another thing that I would suggest a Muslim woman look for in a husband. So you want to be looking for somebody that you argue well with. And that may sound odd. There are people that your style of argument with is going to be awful. It's going to be, you two yelling at each other, maybe even physical, fights, or an unwillingness to listen to the other person's side, to ever hear the other person out. That's not what you want. You want to be in a relationship with somebody that you can have disagreements with, and you can even have arguments with, get annoyed with, but it doesn't escalate too high. And there's a willingness on both sides, like I said in my last point, to hear out the other person's perspective and to compromise if need be, to like make some movement in the direction of the other person's opinion. There needs to be a willingness for that. You want to be with somebody who isn't afraid to admit when they're wrong, who isn't afraid to apologize and be humble when they've realized that they've made a mistake or that they're wrong. That's something for sure you want in a husband. Also, somebody who will not just brush off conflict and be like, oh, I don't want to talk about this right now, or we'll talk about this another time, I don't want to talk about this right now, and it's just like always like that. You don't want to be with somebody like that because they're ultimately dismissing communication. If you don't have communication about the things you don't agree on, then there's never going to be progress in the direction of coming to mutual agreement or ending that argument. So you need to be with somebody who is willing to have those difficult conversations, is willing to have those arguments so that resolutions can be made. Yeah, ultimately speaking, somebody that you argue well with. The last thing that I would suggest for a Muslim woman looking for a husband is that they find somebody who's not rich per se, but somebody who has the capability of making money. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but just has the ability to make enough money to get by. Even if they're not making money right now, even if they don't have a job right now, they don't necessarily have to be. We get married at different points in our life. Some of us get married while we're still in school, while we're still educating ourselves so that we can make money in the future. That's totally fine. But I guess what I'm saying is you don't want to marry somebody who doesn't have ambitions, who doesn't see any sort of future where they can have a job and they can support kids if need be. And of course, like me personally, I want to have a job and support my children in the future. But I also, as somebody who knows that I want to have a career in the future and I want to be able to, help provide for my family and stuff like that, I also know that I want to be with a husband who can do that as well. There might be a point in my life personally where I decide that I'm going to take some time off of working, right after having children or something like that, and then go back later. And I want to know that I have the security of somebody who can take care of me if that situation arises. You want to have that security, that financial security in the person that you marry. That's pretty much all of my suggestions, all of the things that I would recommend a Muslim woman look for in a Muslim man. Of course, there are more things you should be looking for, but these are kind of just the things that came to mind. The things that when I was looking for a husband, I didn't necessarily think off the bat, oh, I should be looking for this in a future husband. These are kind of things that I realized later on were traits that I really desired in a future husband, and I think a lot of Muslim women can relate to, wanting those traits in a husband. Feel free to comment down below if there's any other things that I left out that you think are also important for a Muslim woman to look for in a husband. So yeah, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.